phones, we're going to look at the insiders. General Electric has posted, now in this new quarter, a 57% profit this year. The big mega banks, they're all posting record profits as well. Right as Bank of America prepares, this is even in Bloomberg, to have the taxpayers sign on to $79 trillion in Bank of America's derivatives debts that we don't owe. But they're going to have the Herman Cains on the right and the Barack Obamas on the left calling for higher taxes to pay off a debt we don't owe. I mean, all of the student loans, $1 trillion. All the mortgages in this country, delinquent and not delinquent, less than $18 trillion. But there'll be no discussion about 79 trill, backstopping it with trillions. Again, instead, the mega banks that have engineered all this, the Ken Lay, Bernie Madoff types, they will become our rulers, just like the euro. Just like that's a new banking dictatorship being set up over there and ending sovereignty because the public is ignorant about real finance. And they think this crony capitalist anti-free market system, they think it's capitalism. Because Michael Moore told everybody so, but Luke Radowski talking to Alec Baldwin a few days ago, that video's up on Infowars.com. Baldwin said, no, we do need free market. We do need capitalism. So this whole debate is taking place right now. We're going to be looking at how the insiders are exempt from taxes and how those very insiders then promote tax increases on the rich. They mean middle class because they siphon it off in banker bailouts. It's the ultra-rich manipulating the poor against the middle class, pressure from above and below. That's the true paradigm. Now, for the next 15 minutes, Naomi Wolf, best-selling author, Rhodes Scholar, you name it, joins us, also one of the leading feminists. And she wrote the landmark international bestseller, The Beauty Myth, challenging the cosmetics industry and so much more. It would take 15 minutes to go over her bio. But we've got her here because, well, here's the London Guardian. Naomi Wolf, How I Was Arrested at Occupy Wall Street, arresting a middle-aged writer in an evening gown for peaceable conduct is a far cry from when America was a free republic. And that's because the military-industrial complex owned by the banks runs all this. You get different rhetoric under Clinton, Bush, Obama, but the exact same program. TSA checkpoints now domestically. And we're on the streets of America. We are going into full globalist occupation. Naomi Wolf, thank you for coming on with us, jailbird.
Thanks so much for having me on again, Alex. I always like talking to you. And I appreciate the chance to talk about this especially.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. So tell us about your thought crime. A genteel, attractive, well-dressed woman, I've seen the photos and videos, is arrested. I guess you're not even allowed. I mean, this is like North Korea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's truly unbelievable. Let's see. I guess I'll just start it quickly. At the beginning, my boyfriend and I were going to an event at the Huffington Post that we'd been invited to, and there were these Occupy Wall Street protesters outside of the event struggling to communicate with each other because they were forbidden to use a microphone by New York City permit. And my book, Give Me Liberty, explains that New York City and other cities have passed a bunch of sneaky self-permits to really prohibit people from exercising freedom of speech and assembly. You can't rally without a permit. You can't use a megaphone. You can't stand here, you can't stand there, and it's all not transparent and not accountable. In New York City, they can turn you down for whatever reason. You never know why, and you can't appeal. So I knew that. So I told them to push on the permits thing with a lawyer because it was one of these fake permits designed to silence the protesters. Then my boyfriend suggested I get a list of their demands and take them inside because Cuomo was going to be there. They wanted to communicate their demands to him, and I thought, well, if I get a chance to chat with him, I'll just pass on, their list of demands because this is a republic theoretically, and they're his boss. He works for them, so it seemed like a good idea. I took their demands. We went inside. We hung out. We mingled. We met our friends. Came outside. He didn't show up, and I had another commitment, actually an important business meeting. So when we came outside, we saw that the protesters had been pushed away or had been moved away from the sidewalk where Cuomo was going to be, where the gala was, across two lanes of traffic to the opposite corner, far away from the event. And I knew from studying protests, because, you know, after I wrote The End of America, which talks about how easy it is to close a democracy.
Yeah, they were kettling them.
They were exactly right. And this is happening all over the world. So, and this is super important, Alex, as you know, because the number one thing that opens a closing society is protest, mass assembly, and not just, you know, permitted protest is impotent, go from here to there. No, mass protest that disrupts business as usual peacefully is so powerful.
Well, I mean, it's the foundation of any free society, and I've been in New York at the RNC and other events where I'm just videotaping a protest 300 yards away on a sidewalk with a camera, and a cop comes over, this is on video in my film Martial Law, and screams at me like I'm the lowest filth and threatens to arrest me. And,
Really?
and I have been arrested in New York for demonstrating on another occasion. But the point is that a permit is a authorization to do something that would otherwise be illegal. And so permitting is a way to basically enslave people. And then they just get rid of the permitting, as you said, or refuse the permit.
Right.
So it turns your right to demonstrate into a privilege. And the way they brainwash the cops, I want to get your view on this, it's going back 50 years ago on the St. Patrick's Day parade or something. If you want to block, 10 blocks, sure, you got to get a permit, and cops may have to pay for it, get sponsors, because you've got to block other people's way. But there's no doubt under the First Amendment around government buildings or in commons or on the sidewalks that it's totally protected, and they know this. And the fact that they are administration to administration clamping down on it more and more shows this country's in deep trouble.
I totally agree with you. And, it seems like this discussion about, this weird bureaucracy of permits is really technical and boring, but it's incredibly important and relevant to literally whether people can gather and speak to each other and, exert their First Amendment rights for freedom of assembly and the right to petition government for redress of grievances. And so this is in municipality after the 70s, after there was this really effective wave of mass protests, powerful entities, thought, let's just stop this. And they just sneakily passed all these...
Naomi, let me stop you because your phone was... and this happened the last time we were on. I think you've got a bad cell. Are you on a hands-free right now?
No, it's a regular cell phone.
Can you just put that receiver right up to your mouth?
Sure, I'm sorry.
No, that's a lot better. Start over. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, no, I was just saying that they've sneakily across the country done this. So I hear from people in Texas who are saying, we're in a public park and they're telling us, that they're going to arrest us and it'll cost us $600. Or, we're in, another park. They're telling us that if we cover our heads from the rain with a piece of plastic, we're violating a permit. So they're just making this stuff up. And it's not transparent and it's not accountable.
Yeah, they're lawyering it so they can try to claim, oh, well, we didn't totally take your First Amendment. If you can jump through 100 flaming hoops and show up on a blue moon on the top of the mountain wearing a turkey hat, then with a bag with 14 marbles in it on a Tuesday evening when the whippoorwill cries, then maybe.
Totally. You're right. So this gets worse. You won't believe it, because I got arrested for a permit that doesn't exist. So let me get to that. So I go across the street and I said, what happened? And they said, well, the cops told us that the permit in force forbids us from walking up and down the sidewalk. And I studied this, and I knew there is no such thing. So I checked with the cops, and one of them said, yes, the permit the event holders have lets them control the sidewalk for a number of hours. Not possible. So I'm a reporter. I went back across the street. I asked around. I asked police. I asked people with the event. Finally, I found someone who was with the event who said he had seen the permit, and in fact, he confessed it does allow for peaceful assembly by protesters if we didn't obstruct traffic. So I went back across the street, said, guys, my boyfriend and I are going to walk peacefully up and down the street outside the event. We've checked the permit. It's legal. Please join us if you want to. A dozen people came with us. We were literally, Alex, walking up and down the street in single file peacefully, holding hands, not even saying anything. I'm not even a partisan supporter of the movement for their First Amendment rights, because my grandma taught me that you have to do that. So then, out of nowhere, a phalanx of like 30 or 35 white-shirted guys, police officers, I guess, hires up, show up, and they must have been reinforcements because they hadn't been there before. And they surround us, and a guy with a megaphone, and remember that protesters, citizens, are not allowed to use megaphones, shouts, you are ordered to disperse, you're creating an illegal obstruction. And, pardon me, I'm just going to plug this in so that I don't lose you. At that point, I knew that that was not correct. So I walked up to him, and you see in the video, very peacefully, because I'm all about peaceful protests. I've been saying for weeks on my Facebook page to the protesters, you've got to be peaceful, respectful to the cops. That's effective, and it's the right thing to do. Peacefully walked over toward him with total respect and courtesy.
So you walked towards the god, approaching the deity with the proper deference. The bush was in front of him. What happened?
Well, I do believe, I mean, I hear you, but I also think at those high-tension moments, again, from studying protests in history, it's really important to be super calm and peaceful, because that doesn't escalate, and it doesn't give provocateurs a chance to make things violent.
No, I agree with you. So you approach him nicely.
So I approached him, and I identified myself, and I said, "Officer, I'm confused. I checked the permit, and the law says we do have a right to protest here so long as we're not obstructing." You dared talk?
You dared talk to a supreme being? A rulership? Oh, that's like in Ghostbusters when they're up on the top of the building and Zool is there and they say, you know, we're telling you to get out of New York City, and she says, "Are you a god?" And then when they say no, I mean, you're talking to your ruler. You're a scum who's just there to pay taxes. You're there to provide as a slave. So you talk to your owner, your ruler, your god, certainly not your servant. What happened?